he stepped back from it because he's out of town too much for the winter months.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna check at the top here. Yeah, he's not there. So that Mike Hausman must have taken the place of
Yeah.
David.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. If we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Molly, if you could help me out with the roll call, please.
Mayor Atwell,
Present.
Alderperson Eichert,
Here.
Commissioner Kalen,
Here.
Commissioner Jasinski,
Here.
Commissioner Merritt,
Here.
Commissioner Schultz,
Here.
and Commissioner Weiler will be a little bit late today, and Commissioner Hausman.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item number 4, minutes. Discussion and possible action on the following minutes.
Move to approve the minutes of March 30th.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. All right, we'll move on to number 5, citizens' comments on consent agenda items only. Consent agenda items only. All right. Do you have something that's on the consent agenda?
Yes, I do believe so.
Okay, come on up. Name and address, please.
My name is John Wiedenhafe. I live at 908 Sunset Drive here in Delafield.
Spell your last name, please.
Wiedenhoeft.
And what was your address again?
908 Sunset Drive.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So, this has been bugging me since 2018. I would like to know how allowing new business into the city will improve the skills of drivers. Will the business assume the responsibility of re-educating of customers, employees themselves to relearn the rules of the road? This is my comment.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody wants to talk to me or
It's
ask
not
me
a
that.
discussion. You can make statements under citizens' comments on the consent agenda in this case. We listen, and when you're done, we thank you for your time, and we move on to the rest of the agenda.
Okay, I'm finished. Thank you
Okay,
for your
thank you.
time.
All right. Any other citizen comments on the consent agenda? Hearing none. Citizens' comments on the consent agenda is now closed. All right, consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay. 7, public hearing. Public hearing number 1. Topic Elmbrook Church conditional use. 1100 South Highway 83, 1210 South Highway 83, DLC 078949710003, DLC 0784971004, and DLC 07849775. Conditional use amendment to allow summer programming, including installation of a temporary tent to provide shelter for outdoor activities. Is there anyone that would like to speak to public hearing number 1? Anyone that would like to speak to public hearing number 1? Seeing none, public hearing number 1 is now closed. Public hearing number 2. B. Topic Plan Unit Development and Conditional Use, General Development Plan Amendment. Location unknown address on Nashotah Road. DELC 074929982, DELC 074399006, and DELC 07439999009. Hawthorne Farm Properties, Conditional Use Amendment for Planned Unit Development, General Development Plan. Is there anyone that would like to speak to public hearing number 2? Public hearing number 2. Seeing none, public hearing number 2 is now closed. We'll move on to general citizens' comments on items that are other than what was on the consent agenda. So if there's anything else on the agenda that you'd like to make a citizen's comment for, I'll ask you to come up based on your hands being raised. And I'm going to have the mayor, past mayor Phil Schuman, go first. It's a courtesy I give to all prior mayors. They get to go first.
Someday, my son, this too shall be your honor. Anyway, it's Phil Schuman, 1717 Nakawika Road, Delafield, Wisconsin, with a Heartland mailing address. My property is immediately south of the Seven Seas. It abuts the Seven Seas lot. The proposal looks good. A couple of items I would like my comments. They want an 8-foot-high sound barrier type of wall. That's fine, but it looks like it kind of skips the patio area. I would ask that this wall be extended along my house and my deck for sound purposes. The other item is the swale they have to retain the stormwater. I understand this is subject to a stormwater management plan. Am I correct?
Yep.
I would like them to consider the effect of this on my well and my neighbor's well. My well is about 10 feet off the property line along this area. So I want to make sure that my private well is not contaminated because of this. So that's my comments today. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much for your comments, Your Honor.
Another 2 years before you're
Another 2 years.
emeritus.
Come on up.
Hi, my name is Terry Giles. We live at 1607 Weber Court. We also own the property at 1615 Nagawicka Road. And I'm speaking with respect to the old Seven Seas today. As you probably all know by now, that we have a recorded agreement on the deed for the Seven Seas that was provided to the Weisgerbers to allow them to do their previous remodeling.
Sir, can you get a little closer to the microphone?
Speaking in reference to the proposed remodeling, I think it is an excellent idea. I'm in favor of what was done, and I think that they've done it very nicely. I think they've done it very well. I look forward to an invitation to be part of their membership club. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your comments.
Marcia Stocks, 226 Genesee Street. I have comments regarding item 11, number B, zoning code changes, the text. Are we going to be able to discuss this as a principle when that item comes up on the agenda?
Why don't you try and cover what you need to cover here? So just be sure that it gets covered because we didn't discuss that prior. So I'm guessing not. So if you can share your comments now and then we'll see what we can do later.
Yeah, okay, I didn't bring the text with me up here. The item regarding the zoning change to not allow properties with businesses to have access to Genesee Street. I thought we covered this topic. And the alleyway, if that's the alternative, would require either all the properties be sold as a block or nothing happening. Now, that's okay with me too, but my problem being, have we gone through this exercise for the benefit of a single property? The property that has access on Poplar Path. Is there any further discussion on these? I see it's a draft.
Yeah. Yeah, so I really can't have the discussion with you during the comments.
Yeah, no, I'm asking you if, as a principal involved in that number 11, am I going to be able to speak to you regarding that issue at the time when it comes up?
We'll
May
make
I
sure it
actually-
gets addressed.
Yeah, and
We'll make sure it gets discussed at a minimum.
I'm just going to bring something up. So for the zoning text amendment,
Yes.
the Plan Commission will be initiating and setting a public hearing for next month. So we have time. You have time too, just so you know. Tonight we're passing potentially they will be passing a resolution for the land use plan amendment piece, and then the zoning text amendment will be coming back next month.
Coming in front of the Plan Commission.
Plan Commission again.
Okay, my only comment regarding that is every property to the south of City Hall has their access on Genesee Street. All the other properties are commercial except for those under this proposal.
Okay.
So, I mean, the speed limit is the same in front of my house as it is in front of the school and all the commercial properties that come between mine and the City Hall.
Okay.
So,
All right.
there you go.
Sounds good. Thanks for your comments. They're appreciated. Who'd like to be next? Come on up.
Good evening. Jacob Feutz, F-E-U-T-Z, 208 Genesee Street. Speaking again on item 11, just like Marcia was. So first of all, my apologies for missing last month after committing I was going to be here. I do oppose the land use amendment change. My basis is pretty simple. I purchased a home in a residential neighborhood, a very developed residential neighborhood. I think, you know, we should consider the nature of my opposition. I'm not opposing a neighboring property, undeveloped neighboring property be developed. I purchased a home in a very long-standing residential neighborhood, hoping to live in a residential neighborhood. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and wanted to live here for quite some time. If I am now surrounded by businesses, as some of the properties of adjacent to me change hands and the owners change their minds about what they want those properties to be, it's no longer a place that I desire to be. So again, this is not a neighbor complaining about something that's getting rezoned or upzoned around them. This is literally a property owner telling you they don't want their property being changed. So would ask you to consider what sort of signal this sends to the community when, you know, somebody that's in a residential neighborhood, a very developed, long-standing residential neighborhood, cannot count on that staying as a residential neighborhood. So that is my comment this evening. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Who would like to be next? Any other citizens' comments? Come on up.
Susie Thompson, 700 Milwaukee Street. I'd like to see consistency with all of our councils and committees using the zoning. If we're Central Business District 1 or 2, it's CBD. It's not Central Business Area. It's not a CBA, it is CBD. And unless we're going to change everything on our maps, I would ask that we be consistent. The zoning along Genesee, making that a 4th district, opens up a lot of questions within the community. People are asking if you were going to continue expanding the zoning and the uses for them. And so I know it'll be brought up for a meeting that everybody can comment, and we'll have more of the back and forth, but that will be nice as well. As to the development being done by Seatman for Hawthorne Farm properties, that is the most beautiful presentation of maps and topography and different plantings to be happening. And the 13 parcels and the way that's divided, I think, is stunning. I've driven by there and looked at that. I think that's gorgeous. So welcome to the community and looking forward to seeing that happen.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Any other citizens' comments? Any other citizens' comments? Seeing none, citizens' comments are now closed. We'll move on to number 9, unfinished business. A, DELC 0789497003, DLC 0784971004, DLC 4975, 1100 and 1210 South 83, owner Elmbrook Church Incorporated, applicant Jennifer Ecken. Applicant is requesting that the Planning Commission discuss and provide feedback regarding a conditional use amendment to allow summer programming, including an installation of a temporary tent to provide shelter for outdoor activities and schedule a public hearing for the same. Would the applicant like to come up? Amy, you want to give us a
Sure.
overview, please?
Okay, so Elmbrook Church, they've been operating since 2016. Prior to that, the site was occupied by Westbrook Church. They had a conditional use, a formal conditional use since 2004. They actually have been reviewed through permitting and conditional uses from the city much earlier than that. The applicant currently is proposing approval for a summer camp that serves children during the months of July and August, including outdoor activities. I see my computer just locked out. And they are proposing a tent. Hold on. Okay. And they're proposing an outdoor tent in order to shelter the kids during certain activities and lunchtime in the green space, which is east of the parking lot and pretty far from the adjacent properties to the east. And then there's a picture in the packet of the tent that will be installed, and it'll only be there during the times of the summer programming. My recommendation, I have a draft conditional use agreement with a recommended time frame. I don't specify the dates that they're proposing this year, just in case they tweak those dates from year to year, because they are proposing to do this on an annual basis. So as a recommendation, I do recommend approval of the CU amendment subject to the terms and conditions of the enclosed conditional use agreement. It is subject to attorney review before it goes to Common Council. And then the condition I was referring to says that the conditional use permit issued on May 3rd, 2004 and is further amended on November 3rd, 2014 and October 3rd, 2016 shall remain in effect and be complied with except as further modified herein. The applicant shall be allowed to operate a summer camp that partially takes place outdoors, including the installation of a temporary tent as described in the application materials on an annual basis during the summer for a period not to exceed 3 months, just to give them that wiggle room.
Are they bound by the size that they're committing to here? I mean, approving this, are they saying if they want to, so it goes great this year, next year they want to do twice the size, do they have to come back and do this again, or can we approve it for twice the size that it is now, or twice the quantity, or something like that? So that
You can. We may want to tweak the CU agreement, which is fine. I can do that for Common Council.
I mean, I think this is exactly what you'd expect from a church to have something like this, and it's totally appropriate. So I mean, I'd like to I'll make a motion to approve this and recommend it to council for the size proposed and up to twice the quantity or twice the size for future use.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second. Okay, discussion. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. You didn't even have to give your name and address.
Good luck.
My name is Andrew Johnston. I live at 2822 Ridley Road in Delafield and serve as the campus pastor at Elmbrook Church Lake Country Campus. So,
Good luck.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good job.
Okay, we will move on to 9B. Let's hope it goes as smooth. DELC 07492-982, DLC 0743999-006, and DELC 0743999-009. Unknown address on Neshota Road. Owner Hawthorne Farm Property, LLC. Applicant John Seepman. Applicant is seeking an amendment to the conditional use permit for a planned unit development, general development plan, to accommodate a 13-lot single-family subdivision on the south side of Neshota Road, rather than the previously proposed 24-unit development with 2 units per building. Amy, want to give us an overview?
Sure. So there are 2 agenda items tonight. The first one is just simply modifying the general development plan, which was approved in 2001, that included the 22 lots on the north side of Nashotah Road, which are under construction. They got their specific implementation plan approval. And then it did include 24 units on the south side of the road with 12 buildings. So 12 buildings with 24 units. Because they were so successful with phase one with the single family lots, they are going to transition into just having 13 single family lots on the south side of the road. But because of that, they can transfer their density to the north side of Nashotah Road instead, because they do get a total of 52 units, including the Knopf farm, if they end up using the Knopf farm. So they're projecting that. If they don't, they would lose 4 units, if that makes any sense. So the new exhibit, there would be 2 exhibits, one that would show the south side of the road and phase 1, because that was part of the GDP. And then this would be an additional exhibit that just shows what might potentially occur on the north side of the road. So before they just had 4 lots on the north side of the road. Now that they're losing 11 of the lots on the south side, they can transfer that up here. But keep in mind, the development of this north side, that will be dealt with a specific implementation plan. We're really dealing with the south side of the road.
All right.
Any questions? That's all I have for this part. We're going to talk about the specific implementation plan on the next item.
All right. You guys want to give your name and address and tell us more about phase 2?
I'm John Seatman. This is Chris Seatman. Our address is West 240 North 1221 Pewaukee Road, Waukesha. I think Amy gave a nice overview of it. This is just simply an extension or an addition to the 22 lots on the north side. We are calling this unofficially Hawthorne Farm South. It will look, feel, and act just the same. It'll have the same deed restrictions, the same landscaping, the same lot sizes, the same association. It will share the private trails amongst all 20 or 35 lot owners, and it will include a portion of public trail and some private trails as well. If you recall, a year ago, when we went through the first specific implementation plan, the owner of the property dedicated 4 acres on roughly the southwest corner, on the corner of Mission Road and Nashotah Road, to the city for the purposes of, it was a dedication to the city. And there was a stipulation in there that property could be used for stormwater management and a public trail, both of which we've covered here. And the intention was to make it a focal point for that area for stormwater management. So we're doing everything we can to make it a really cool looking stormwater facility. I don't know what else. I guess I'd open it up for questions.
Questions from the Planning Commission members? Clarity on any items that you saw in the packet?
Yeah, so one question, the access road that's going, it's kind of a little bit of an elbow that's going from the middle of the homes to the north to Nashotah Road. That is that's emergency access only. It'd be similar to what you've got in Mission Prairie, where there'd be no traffic. It'd be
correct,
essentially a post there to stop vehicles from going in and out.
Just like we have in the first phases too.
Okay.
The cul-de-sac was 1,070 feet long.
70 feet too long?
Yeah, we just couldn't make it work.
But it's an extra trail.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
No.
Works out, looks good.
Yeah,
It's
it
a
does
good one
look
to ride
good.
your bike.
I think it's well planned out.
So this is
There's some topics that are going to need to be addressed in the developers agreement, and I think we're heading in a good direction for that. Ultimately, the council approves that.
Right.
I just had one question about that that we were just unclear of, and maybe you can help me clear that up. But the shelter that's there, what is my recollection? And correct me if I'm wrong. Is that you guys were going to purchase the shelter, you're going to install the shelter, and then the maintenance of the shelter. Where did we leave that last?
That's a great question. I don't know if that was
And we
ever
can just-
resolved
Okay.
initially, but our intention was to build it and construct it just alongside the trail and build the trails as well, and then dedicate both of them to the city.
Okay.
For the city to maintain in perpetuity.
Okay.
Because it's part of that Nagawicca Circle Trail. So,
Okay. And then your thought process is that the city would also maintain the Circle Trail?
yes.
Okay.
Anything that's in red on this plan is a public trail.
I was just going to ask that question. The red is the public?
Correct. And the blue is the private trail.
Okay.
And we will go through this in more detail in the next agenda item, just so you know.
Okay. Sounds good. That's all my questions.
So I'll make a motion to approve the general development plan to accommodate the 13-lot single-family subdivision on the south side of Neshota Road, rather than the previously proposed 24-unit development.
I'll second.
All right. Is there any
Second.
Bob? Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay. I believe you stay up here as we move on to number 10, new business A, DELC 0743999006, unknown address on Neshota Road. Owner Hawthorne Farm Property LLC, applicant John Seatman. Applicant is seeking preliminary plat and specific implementation plan approval to develop a 13-lot single-family conservation design subdivision on the south side of Neshota Road. Anything else you want to add, Amy? Or
Yeah, I'll try to be brief because they did come here a few months ago for concept consideration, and not a whole lot has changed. But they do have, like John had mentioned, 1,070-some foot long cul-de-sac. The fire department will only allow 1,000-foot long cul-de-sac, so they did provide that emergency access. That is new since you saw it last. We will need to work with the fire department and make sure that that is adequate the way it's designed, but it is, it should be appropriate. It's what they had asked for. The red lines on here are the proposed public trails. The applicant will be constructing those, and it's a little hard to see, but they are proposing to extend it to, is that Mission Road, the adjacent subdivision to the south. So those folks will be able to get access to the path system that now runs along the south side of Neshota Road, and then also the north side over around Phase 1. They are putting in the stormwater feature. Part of that will be in the city's outlet. The idea there is they do need that area for stormwater management, but it will also be constructed in an attractive manner with native vegetation, and will become an amenity to the people that are walking around the path as part of the park system. They're proposing a bike station, which I'll show you on another plan, a little pavilion structure with a repair facility. We are going to be meeting with the applicant next week to just iron out those details that the mayor just mentioned regarding construction and maintenance, and then exactly what they would be constructing in there. And that would need to be reviewed and approved by city staff before it would go to Common Council for consideration. Let's see. The surveyor did review so we're reviewing the preliminary plat and the SIP in this agenda item. The surveyor did just provided 2 very simple comments. Otherwise, the preliminary plat is good to go. The city engineer did review the plat, and they feel that there is sufficient space. The stormwater facilities are quite large to accommodate stormwater management. However, there are several comments that need to be addressed before approved and sent on to Common Council. And then the preliminary plats or subdivisions in general do need approval from the state and county, and we did receive the county comments. They're very minor in nature. And then all of those comments need to be addressed before they come in with the final plat. With the specific implementation plan, you do need to consider the details of the subdivision. So one is the stormwater management and utility connection plans, public road improvement construction plans, trail construction and grading plan. All of those are in the packet. Again, the engineer submitted a full letter and they're working through those comments. I can show just real quickly what the grading plan looks like. So here is the proposed grading plan. So there will be some, there will definitely be site grading on the entire site to make this project work. And then the lighting plan, they are not proposing any lighting plan on this property. I mean, individual property owners may have certain lighting components. They are proposing a landscape plan similar to phase one. They have a lot of nice landscaping that they're proposing. It includes trees, shrubs, perennials, prairie grass in the open space areas. The Neshota Road will be tree lined with a similar fence. Is the fence? I have to admit, I haven't been out there. The fence is up on the north side.
Oh, yeah.
So they'll have the same fence, same signage with the plaque. The plat name is going to be Hawthorne Farm Addition 1, but I believe on their plaque they're going to call it Hawthorne Farm South. And then this is a small image of the pavilion structure that will include the bike repair station. They have landscaping in the cul-de-sac again, like they did in phase one. Let's see, there's their fencing and signage. Tree cutting and mitigation. It's hard to see on the plan set on the computer, but they are going to have to remove 10 trees that are considered protected. There are 20 protected trees on the site and 10 of them will have to be removed. That does equal 202 inches. They are proposing to plant 89 trees of at least 2.5 inches in size, which will equal 222.5 inches. So they're planting more than they're removing. And so the mitigation requirements would be met and they would not need to pay any in lieu fees. And then we already talked about the city-owned lands. They'll construct the paths, stabilize the site, put in the prairie seed, put in the stormwater feature, and then the bike shelter, and then we will have to determine the maintenance provisions. And then we'll just need, Scott, we'll need to review the structure and make sure it meets the setback requirements before it gets constructed. We already talked about signage, developers agreement. A draft agreement is in the file. It's very similar to phase one. We just have to iron out a couple of the details, including construction and payment responsibilities for the road that will be constructed on the north side of Neshota Road. We need to just identify those responsibilities now because they do need to use some of the land on the north side of the road to get the density that they're proposing on the south side. Subdivision restrictions are and they have the open space management agreement that's also in the packet. Both of those documents are the developer subdivision restrictions are the same as phase one. It was included the entire plat, and then the open space management is also the same. They have agreed to pay the in lieu fire protection payment, which is a requirement that was also in phase one SIP. They are just working out the costs, considering the size of the development. They would like to consider the necessary size that would be required, considering both phases. And so they're working with city staff on that. I think that's all I have to add. Am I missing anything?
No, I think you got it covered.
So with that, I am recommending that the Common Council approve the preliminary plat subject to compliance with city surveyor and engineering comments, as well as any requirements of all objecting and approval authorities prior to the submittal of a final plat. And then recommend that Common Council conditionally approve the specific implementation plan components as described in this report, subject to final review and approval of all required plans and documents by the city administrator, planner, city surveyor, engineer, and attorney as necessary, including The review and approval of the detailed stormwater management and utility connection plans, public road improvement construction plans, trail construction plans and grading plan, stormwater management plan and maintenance agreement. The maintenance agreement does not have to be completed and recorded prior to construction. But I think they probably have something put together. And then the developer's agreement, any necessary financial assurances, the open space management plan, the subdivision restrictions, and the final plat.
Public Works, I didn't see them in here
Oh,
for any
yes,
review.
sorry, I wanted to ask,
Typically, we
do
see
you
these.
want, yes,
Yes.
do you want that to go on the agenda
Can you
in
make
May?
next
Did
week's
they already prepare the
agenda
agenda for
for
May?
Public Works?
What's the date of it?
Wednesday?
Wednesday evening?
Yeah, at 6:30.
I'm pretty sure Mike Court has you on the agenda.
Yeah, we can make it happen.
Need a hard copy.
You'd like a look at the
10?
the turns on the path too, maybe smooth those corners out.
We will look at everything with
yeah,
a
okay.
fine tooth comb.
I know you do.
Yeah, I mean, one thing
No,
that,
I'm sure.
that you probably want to look at too is that trail goes right up against the Mission, I don't know, the adjacent subdivision.
Red Chapel Court.
Right up to their outlet, so if any grading occurs, they'll need easements.
And then if you could also look at signage for the crosswalk area on the path. I don't know if there were signs there about, warning people that the crosswalk is there and that type of thing. I mean, I'm assuming the city would put those in, but if you could just make sure you make that crossing, notice to drivers so it's as safe as it can be.
That is in the plan.
Is it in the plan?
Yeah, we have a
Okay.
full crosswalk with crossing signs and the warning signs.
We do, okay.
What was the path width in the phase one, or the infamous path width?
Oh, 8
question?
feet?
8 feet.
8 feet, yes.
And it's in the same for this phase? Yeah.
So, do you know, I mean, this might be a what if, and it's obviously weather dependent, but do you expect that the water retention ponds to be holding water all year, or you don't know? Is it
Well,
hard to tell?
All of our soil tests indicate that yes, they will hold water.
No, I mean, will they have water all year?
It just depends on where they are. The fortunate part of the ground here is that it's very permeable.
Uh-huh.
The unfortunate part of it is that it's not very permeable, or that it is too permeable. So we have to seal these ponds off. We call them wet cells. The wet cells are sealed with 2 feet of clay. And last fall, if you noticed in the first phase, there's very little water in the ponds because it was so dry.
Right.
And now that it's getting wetter, you can see that the water level is increasing every time it rains. So we expect them to have a constant water level. I can't tell you exactly where the water level is unless I pulled up the plan.
Sure.
But there will be wet ones, and there will be some that will be what we call wet mesic prairies, so it'll be more of like an ephemeral pond.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And I know, I mean, you've got that in Mission Prairie too. There, it's seldom holding water at depth.
right.
Because but it's got the vegetation in it that makes it doesn't look like a mud pit because
It's water tolerant.
Yeah, and so you got the same similar plan for these.
Exactly.
Okay. And a similar shape. I mean, these aren't rectangles. These are.
We don't like rectangles.
All right,
for
good.
ponds.
All right. I don't either. All right. We're in like Kettle Marine. It's nice to have them look like they got
Yeah,
like
the intention
God
is
put
it
them there
looks
instead
like
of
a
you. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Any other questions from the commission? All right, then we're looking for a motion if we don't have any more questions.
I can do it. Or, I mean, I wrote it as 2 separate recommendations. I think they can just do that.
I gotta look at your.
You could say recommend approval of the preliminary plat and specific implementation plan in accordance with the staff report if you don't want to repeat it all. Just saying.
You read the whole thing.
I'll make them.
Do it.
I'll make a motion to approve, recommend to council, and based on what you just said.
That's really cheating.
To approve the preliminary plat, subject to compliance with the city surveyor engineering comments, as well as everything.
And Public Works.
By the plan.
And go to Public Works.
Subject to Public Works review. I think I heard you say
And
that.
I did say also on subject to Public Works review.
I'll second.
Molly, you want to read that back just to make sure we have that right, please?
I've already.
Oh.
All right, who had the second on that? Just
Tim Eicher.
Eicher, okay. Motion by Wheeler, seconded by Eicher, to recommend that the Common Council approve the preliminary plat, subject to compliance with city surveyor and engineering comments, as well as any requirements of all objecting and approval authorities prior to the submittal of the final plat, and to recommend that Common Council conditionally approve the specific implementation plan components as described in this report, subject to final review and approval of all the required plans and documents by the city administrator, city planner, city surveyor, city engineer, and city attorney as necessary, including the following. And then that's the 6 terms, and then also subject to approval by the, approval of recommendation by the Public Works Commission.
Perfect.
Good job.
You good with that, Amy?
Yes.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much. See you on Wednesday.
You bet.
Okay, we're moving right along here. 10B, DLC 0787995-1037 Milwaukee Street, owner and applicant Peter Keck. Applicant seeks feedback and requests to schedule a public hearing for a special exception to convert an existing patio into a screened porch on a non-conforming lot that does not meet side yard setbacks. Oh, you're already up there.
There you go.
If you could just give us your name and address.
Yep. Peter Keck, 1037 Milwaukee Street.
So Scott, you want the ball on this one, or are we going to Amy here?
Going to Amy.
Okay, so this property is east of downtown and just northwest of Fireman's Park. You can see it on the aerial photo that I have up. The applicant, let's see here, here's a survey. They are converting a portion of their existing patio, so they have a patio in this area of the house, into a porch. That would be 16 by 16 in size. That's 256 square feet. The porch would be approximately 7 feet 3 inches from that lot line. The R1D district does require a 15-foot offset, but the ordinance allows any lot with a non-conforming width can come to the Plan Commission for a special exception to have an addition that doesn't meet the offset but is no closer than the existing structure. So does that make sense? I feel like I just, okay.
Yeah.
And the lot width is on this particular lot is 67 feet, whereas the R1D requires 100 feet. So they are allowed to use that process. But if you'll remember when we amended the code, about a year ago, we did include some provisions where when an applicant proposes a special exception, it only needs Plan Commission approval, but that a public hearing is required. And so just to start, I would recommend that you provide any feedback to the applicant so he's prepared. But we would need to notice this as a Class 2 notice, and we would need the Plan Commission to schedule the public hearing for May 25th.
And then when we schedule that public hearing, the neighbors are notified, is that correct?
Yep, everyone within 300 feet. So similar to a CU rezone or Board of Appeals.
Have you got a feel one way or the other what your neighbors think of this?
Well, the only neighbor that, the affected lot line neighbor is a vacant lot, but they may plan on building there someday, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want me, let's see, can you tell? So that property to the west, it's a fairly, another fairly narrow lot, but it is currently vacant.
Correct. And the neighbor beyond that would be fine with it.
They don't own that vacant lot, do they?
No.
That's an independent owner, okay.
Correct.
So the structure you're looking to put up is no wider than the house, correct? It's the same width as, would go out to the edge of the house and then straight back,
Yes.
correct?
No
All right.
closer to the lot line than the existing structure, straight
All right.
back from the garage.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
And we're just looking to schedule the public hearing here right now. Yeah.
I mean, if you have any feedback.
I mean, my feedback, I mean, you're matching the roof lines. I don't understand why this would be an issue for our neighbor.
Yeah.
I
It's nice.
think it's perfectly appropriate for.
Yeah.
But I'm not confused why you want a three seasons room when we have 44-degree days. So I'll make and next month is good for your public hearing? I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing for this property for next month.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. See you next month.
Those are the easy motions you should take. Let Tim handle the
Okay,
hard
item number
ones.
10, C, DLC 0782001-001, 1807 Nagawicka Road, owner Walker's Point Property LLC, J. Franks and David Hero, applicant Peter Damsgaard, architect. Applicant seeks feedback regarding a preliminary concept presentation related to building and site improvements being proposed on property formerly known as 7 Cs. Welcome.
Hello.
I don't know if we have. Do you have more? I don't need one.
Oh, there's no, we got one.
Well, wait a minute. It's two pieces.
Here, Laura, we can share.
It's two pieces. I didn't realize it was two.
We can share.
Oh, okay.
Share.
Here.
We can.
They got enough? Here, give Bob.
Yeah.
I can share.
Here you go. Oh, all right.
Am I going?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry.
Got it.
I'm going to put a little more responsibility on the applicants for this one, but this is as you know, the 7 Cs property. The property is zoned for residential purposes, and they have been operating as a conditional use since 1977. There are no conditions that prohibit the transfer of ownership. The ownership has transitioned. They did come in 2021 to get a business plan of operation to open up the business. Because it is a legal non-conforming conditional use, they can't cease operation for a period of 12 months. So the last time they operated was in October of 2021. The applicants intend on operating for an event before the end of October of 2022. But in the meantime, they are going to significantly remodel the structure they are proposing to. It will continue to be used, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a public restaurant, private event space, private members club, and a gathering place for the community. And the upstairs would still be a banquet event space as well. They are proposing, again, significant improvements, and I don't know, would it be better do you want to touch on them? And I have them listed in the report. I'm happy to, actually you have, so here, let's just toggle through. I know we've got the audience through some of these colored renderings, but they are going to be painting the structure, giving it quite a residential feel. This signage that's proposed in the plans still hasn't been scaled or detailed, so they'll be coming back for signage at a later date. And this is just a project presentation at this point too. But why don't you, if I zoom in on here, I think I could probably, let's see, how did I do this? I'm just wondering, do you want to explain what these different points are?
Sure. Peter Damsgaard, Growth Design Group. Address is N58 W6181 Columbia Road, Cedarburg, Wisconsin.
Sorry about that. Can you
Yeah. DAMSGAARD. So as Ms. Barrows touched on, we're going to be remodeling the exterior, but the footprint of the structure and the general character, roof lines, et cetera, will remain as is. The biggest change that I think will be noticeable upon the entry is we're going to create a tree-lined boulevard entry drive that aligns with the front door. This will serve a purpose of creating a nice entry sequence, but also will help to shield some of the large sea of parking to the north and to the south as well. We will be replacing windows, painting the existing structure, doing some roof replacement, particularly on the lake side, to add some accent roofing to give a little scale and character back to the building. The areas kind of on the south, there's an existing open air pavilion that will remain as footprint, height, etc. However, we will be cleaning it up, removing some of the non-architectural detailing, the lattice fence work that you see there, some of the column wraps, and we'll be replacing that with some stone column wraps, and then painting the structure in a similar manner to the main building. There's also an existing garage that will remain and get a facelift as well, similar to what we're doing to the main building. I think some of, here you can see the pavilion and the garden area. Like Ms. Barrs touched on, the general footprint, use, et cetera, won't change, so the scale of the patios, et cetera, will remain the same. We've included some preliminary details to some fencing and to some other accent pieces that will be placed around the site as well. With that, I guess I will stop rambling and let you guys ask questions and answer any comments.
I'll just add the parking lot. So they're clean, you know, they're going to create some more green strips in the parking lot area. But in order to do that, they are going to lose a couple of parking spaces. So they currently have 213 parking stalls out here. They will have 194 stalls. 6 of those will be handicapped. According to their calculations, 191 parking stalls are required. That includes the entire footprint of the building, correct? So we will verify that that is compliant before they make their formal application. And I just want to also point out, in accordance with the conditional use permit that's in place, they can't reduce the parking from the permit that was issued in 1977. But at that time, there was significantly less parking. There's been some modifications made since then. So keep that in mind. And then I also wanted to point out the cupola. So let's see. The fencing, I've got the fencing plan on here. Full privacy fencing and fencing, there's gonna be some fencing pretty close to the south lot line. That does need Plan Commission approval, so when they come through formal approval, we will wanna specifically look at the fencing piece of it. And then
Before you go off the fencing,
yes.
So there was a citizen's comment made that it go to the location towards the end of the building. Is that your intention to do that?
Yeah, if you go to the site plan, I think you'll be able to see it. We are open to discussion on the extents of that fence. The goal there and the reason that it is the size it is to provide privacy, both visual and acoustical privacy to the neighbor. Sorry,
so I'm not sure what he was, so here's the my cursor.
So number 15 is the fence, yeah, that would go along to that tree line there. So it's blocking in the pavilion in that outdoor area. And then as we transition away from where people will be congregating and speaking, we will be using landscaping, extensive landscaping to screen the parking lot.
So I think that addressed his concern that it covered the building and the patio.
Yep. And again, like I said, we're flexible on the final extents of that fence.
There's also that weather vane. Let's see, maybe this is a good picture. Weather vane and cupola that are proposed on the building. They will exceed the height requirement for that. That does require Plan Commission and Common Council approval. So if you want to, you know, with that, if you're not ready to come in for formal site plan approval yet, you could send that through the process ahead of time if you wanted to come back next month. And then the signage will be coming back. They are working on constructing a bioretention swale in the south lot line in the parking area to meet the stormwater requirements. That'll all need to be reviewed by the city engineer when we get to that point. You're protecting all the existing trees on site, is that correct?
Correct. I guess I would like to point out that we're currently doing a survey of the trees on the north side of the property along the parking lot. It doesn't appear that there's any major protected trees in there, but as we extend that parking a little bit to the north, we may evaluate that a little closer.
Do you want to maybe touch on the patio on the lakeside? Your application said that you'll be grading that to create that to be step out at grade, right?
Correct. So there's an existing patio on that side of the building. It is raised about 6 inches above the existing lower level basement finish floor. So there's an odd little ramp that goes down into the building. Our proposal is just to lower that patio to plus or minus 6 inches to be flush with that finished floor. There's some water issues and other concerns with that. We view it as a very minor grade change, and we are outside of that setback requirement from the lake to do that work. And if I will, I'll touch on the bioretention a little bit to address another citizen's comment. That structure, I'll call it a structure, it's maybe not the right word, is really twofold. It cleans the water that comes off the parking lot through different levels of gravel, different uses of natural planting materials, but it also controls the infiltration flow. So it will reduce or eliminate any water that currently migrates south on this site. There's kind of a low point, I'll call it about halfway down the parking lot, that will solve that, and it'll also meet the quality or exceed the standards for the runoff quality once it's through the retention.
Isn't there currently a storm pipe that goes to the south?
There is
had some issues. Does this replace that, or is this still sending the water down there?
So we are exploring exactly where that pipe gets daylit.
Okay.
There is a structure in the south part of that lot, and then there's a swale also that surface water runs off of. Our goal with the bioretention swale is to eliminate any water running to the south, and that pipe would get recollected and moved into a different direction.
I mean, the construction's a good opportunity to take care of an issue at the most economically way possible, because you're gonna be moving a lot of dirt and stuff already. So it'd be nice to, even if it's an existing issue that you're inheriting, it'd be nice to have it go away.
Yep. We'd like that one to go away as well.
All right.
And so they will be resurfacing this whole parking lot. The code does require islands every, I can't remember exactly, every so many spaces. But the Plan Commission has the ability to allow perimeter landscaping instead. With this site, it's been a long-term need to have as much parking as possible, and they are proposing to have that perimeter landscaping in place. So, but something you'll need to think about for formal approval.
Well, on the topic of water and that too, when you got to get the snow out of there as well, and you don't necessarily want to push it all at the lake when you're salting the. So I mean, whatever helps, and then you don't want the piles running off into places when the ground's still frozen, right? So I mean, yeah. So I mean, good luck, but no, but so I think it's reasonable to expect that some islands are nice, but do something that's extremely practical from the standpoint of getting the snow out and making the water go where it's supposed to go as a first priority, and then the trees second. It was what I would think, but that's a Public Works, and that are going to be able to check that out more thoroughly than I can from looking at this.
Do you think this site plan will need to go to Public Works then?
It's borderline, but probably. I'm guessing Mike's gonna look at it for stormwater management.
Because it's a redevelopment site, they'll actually have less, I think they'll have less impervious surface than they have now, is that correct?
I don't want to say that definitively, but that's currently how it's calcing out.
So it's more of an erosion control and redevelopment review instead of full-on stormwater review.
And we don't see a traffic issue with this one, do we? I don't think so, because it's replacing a restaurant that was there before. Yeah, I don't know if that has to come to Public Works. If Mike's gonna review the stormwater.
So we had talked about this at our staff meeting level, but just bringing up the boathouse, the boathouse is really cool. It's a great little place. It's a wet boathouse. It can't be, rebuilt that way. So at some point, you're going to have to think about what you're going to do with that. And typically, the general rule with the boathouse is its exterior should match the design and character of the main building. So just keep that in mind as you move through the process.
Will do.
I'll make an aesthetic comment on the. I know you're inheriting kind of a Spartan roof line, and you're adding some cupolas. They're almost a little dainty. I mean, I don't want to say if you want to beef them up, I think it might play around with it to see how it looks. But I don't think exceeding the height's an issue if it aesthetically makes it look bolder or nicer. So
perfect.
And we do that in many buildings in the city, right? I mean, it's not unusual for us to allow that.
Frankly, they kind of look like little enhanced lightning rods. No, I think you're on the right track. The plan looks great as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the plan looks great. It's a huge improvement.
Yes.
And, I think it's going to be quite welcome into the city. So I appreciate the effort you're putting into this.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
What is your timeline wish these days, now that you're a little farther into it?
Yeah, we would like to start construction as soon as possible, obviously. We're looking to start sometime this summer with approximately a year to complete the project, a little less maybe. Lead times in supply chain.
Hard to predict
It's
now.
hard to predict.
And who gets an invite for the bologna sandwich or whatever you're going to serve?
Everybody does.
Well, again, as mentioned before, thank you very much for taking on this challenge. Thank you for bringing the presentation that you have. And without providing any details when I'm asked about it, I've been saying I don't think there's a thing about it you're not going to love. So,
I appreciate that.
So are we looking to schedule a public hearing for this?
No, there is no
nothing?
public hearing because it will just be
feedback?
site plan and appearance review. They only have to come back for business plan of operation if they change that operation that was approved in 2021. I just say in here at a minimum, they're going to need to, submit a lighting plan with catalog cut sheets and photometrics, detailed landscape plan, stormwater management plan, detailed signage plan. And then the approval for the cupolas and weather vane, if you want to pursue that right away, you could. But maybe if you want to do that and you do want to beef it up, that's what we need to see.
Sure.
I'm glad you mentioned lighting on the lake side of the building for sure. The Lake Welfare Committee and so forth always wants downward lighting because the light will travel across the entire lake. So keep everything downward lighting on that side of the building.
Will do.
That looks great.
Great. If there's nothing else, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Hey, good luck.
Did you want this?
Nope.
I keep it in my file.
Okay, we're on to 10D. DELC 08049880001, 3250 Hillside Drive, owner B&G Realty LLC, applicant Ryan Jansen, Ryan Building LLC. Applicant seeks feedback regarding a preliminary concept presentation related to the development of a vacant lot for the purpose of building a tenant salon suite facility, which would be known as Avery and Birch. Amy, you want to go through all the details on this one?
Sure. So this one's actually a tad bit complicated, and I'll explain. But this property's on Hillside, just east of the Marcus Theater. There's a vacant parcel east of the big parking lot that's never used. It's 1.3 acres in size. It is served by sewer and water. It's part of a planned development with several properties, and I'm gonna actually put that up here. Okay, so this might be hard to see on the screen, but the properties that are subject to the planned development are within this bold black line. So just real quickly, I guess, the applicant is proposing a building, a 9,000 square foot building to have 31 tenant beauty salon suites. And they have two different plans, one that shows 44 parking spaces, one that shows 47 parking spaces. Both of those plans would comply with the ordinance. I mean, there are some things that haven't been considered yet at this point. It is very conceptual, but they do have to manage stormwater on the site. And then there are some utility and cross-access easements that they have to make sure they're not impacting. But before we get to that, this planned development that includes multiple sites was subject to several conditions, and in my report I point out a few of them. One is that the architectural design, materials, and colors of all buildings shall be coordinated so that there is a harmonious design theme for the overall development. To the maximum extent feasible, the architectural character of the buildings shall be reflective of existing architectural themes in the city based on design studies conducted prior to submittal of the SIP for the individual developments. All signs have to be coordinated and unified. I'm simplifying these. The site plan required statistics, so this is the important part. The entire development was required to have 48% landscape green area, including greater than 25% slope areas, stormwater management, pervious and landscape areas, and then the impervious surface was limited to 12% building area, 34% parking and drive area, and 6% public streets. So that was held to like the first development, and then people kept coming in for various developments, and those percentages were getting increased and not being complied with, and the CU amendments were being done more through like a site plan process.
Think Chick-fil-A.
Kind of like Chick-fil-A, but this one I think it's a little bit more off kilter. So then in 2014, the Children's Medical Center came in, clinic. I believe that's the most recent development in this planned development area. And they were over those percentages before that construction even started, and they were over a couple developments before that. But as part of that development, what the Plan Commission looked at was the site individually. And so that site met the B6 requirements on its own, and it got approved. And when you do look at impervious surface provisions and you're including multiple sites, it does get really complicated, because just like with Chick-fil-A, one site gets left at the end and doesn't have any buildable area. And so this is a very valuable site in the city. It's in a great commercial district. And right now, if the Plan Commission didn't take any action at all, you would have to prohibit the development if you just went with the provisions of the conditional use. So in my report, I lay out a couple of options for you to potentially consider. One is to not make any changes, and then any development of this site would be prohibited. Another would be to have the applicant amend the conditional use agreement to exclude the property from the boundaries. The third would be to terminate the conditional agreement altogether because the sites aren't complying with the standards of the conditions in the first place, and have them each just meet the B6 zoning provisions. In order to do that, city staff would need to look at the uses in each of those buildings carefully and make sure they do meet the B6 by right. Because B6, which is what this is zoned, there are several permitted uses. The salon that they're proposing is one of them. And then any other use requires a CU. So we would just need to make sure that they would all be permitted if we did that. And then the fourth option would be to just modify the existing conditional use provisions and change the impervious surface restrictions and building square footage to meet the and have it be that each lot has to meet the B6 standards on its own. With that said, any amendment or any kind of termination does require sign off from all of the property owners in this conditional use because they are all part of it, the agreement. So it's a little bit complicated no matter what with any change, but depending on how they do it, either all of them may benefit or the applicant could just choose to try to benefit. But at this point, not all the structures are cohesively designed. They don't meet the impervious surface provisions, and I don't know if each of them meet the 12, breaking it down to the 12% building area, 34% parking and drive, and 6% public streets. I'm not sure where that lays out, but it's pretty complicated how these different approvals have taken place.
So just
Should I
so you
just
guys
confuse
understand,
everybody?
this has nothing to do with you. This has everything to do with the history of the city, and we're trying to discuss a way to find what avenues can we take to try to find a solution for you.
So this includes, so it's children's. Does it include Tires Plus?
Let's.
Does it go that far?
I think there's
it's
8 or
on the
9.
south side of the street.
8 or 9 different
the
properties
theater
that are involved here. I thought it was much
Yeah.
bigger at first, but I believe it was
But
8
so
or 9.
does that does this conditional use plan development include
I think
Tires Plus?
I think it does, yeah.
I mean, I have a hard time figuring out how you get a cohesive signage plan and architecture out of Children's, Tires Plus, Marcus Theater.
Pacific Bistro.
So I mean, yeah, and which was something else when it was built. So I mean, to me, it sounds like would there be anything negative to either parties involved if they were excluded from the boundaries of the? I mean, that seems like it'd be the best thing to do, and then they'd be remaining in B6, and they'd be developing this property on their own outside of it.
Right. So that was originally what I thought would be the
Well, I mean,
easiest.
what rules? Rules have been broken here.
Well,
So what would?
We don't want to break any more.
No, I know, but we'd be doing something by taking it out of this agreement. But what would be the problem with doing
yeah,
that?
so there's one thing, they are all subject to a regional stormwater facility, so that would have to stay in place. But other than that, I mean, I actually think if they have a hard time excluding themselves as an individual property, I don't know why they all wouldn't just say forget the CU and operate individually as B6 zoning.
So it's what they're doing. But anyway.
I was just gonna say, at some point, that parking lot that Marcus doesn't use will probably be, they'll be up here for the same thing. Either 1 or 2 sites for that, 1 or 2 businesses for that large parking lot that they don't use. So,
Well, realistically, thinking about the long-term future of a movie theater is, and not even long-term, right? I don't want to cast any aspersions to a business that exists, but it's a tough market for that.
According to this map, then, that driveway is on this parcel. So there must be some
There's
shared
a
use
cross-
agreement, a cross-access agreement.
Yeah, and I don't know that their plans reflect that, but there's a utility and cross-access easement on this property.
It's interesting that that driveway got put onto that property.
the half
This
Tires
is-
Plus one, you're saying?
Yeah, the Tires Plus one.
It's
So, I'm-
immediate impervious that I can't use.
I mean, this
There
is
you go.
I think this is significantly different than the Chick-fil-A, because the Chick-fil-A, they were left with a small fractional difference
Right.
of what they needed for green space and open space that was pretty easy to reconcile
this
as
is
far
a
as
little more
this
Just
this
the
seems like
concept,
this
I
is
guess, was all
this
I
has
was
been
trying to say.
disjointed from the beginning. It sounds like I didn't even know that existed. I don't remember this being brought up when Children's was developed. Honestly,
You do or don't?
I don't remember the fact that
I
this was
don't
part of the
either.
entire that this was part of a
I
cooperative.
don't either. And as Amy said, the minutes reflected that we treated it independently.
It was treated
right
like
or
its
wrong,
own
that's
parcel.
what the plan at their time said.
I
said
remember
was in
this. That
compliance.
was 8 years ago, probably, and I don't remember that even being brought up as a
I don't
part of.
remember it.
I mean, so that's why I'd lean toward excluding it from the boundaries and seeing if it had a cascading effect that broke the whole thing apart. I don't know why that would be a negative, because they're already independent properties that don't seem to have it's not a coordinated development, in my opinion. I mean, there's certain things, obviously.
Stormwater.
The driveway is stormwater and,
Lighting.
yeah. But
Yeah,
as far as the signage, architect and all that other
Right,
stuff.
the infrastructure is kind of coordinated,
Yeah.
but it's the individual.
You gotta do that
businesses.
anyway, though, as a neighbor, like.
Yeah.
So I just don't remember any of the solutions being particularly easy following. It might sound easy, but correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, but if what you're proposing, Tim, I believe the discussion was, we have to get a signature from everybody in the CU to allow to do this one, is that correct, or am I, yeah? So the applicant is held up while the process tries to acquire these signatures from 10 different parcels.
So this is a preliminary, this is just
Yes.
conceptual, because I think it's a smart, I mean, it seems like a perfectly appropriate spot for something like this to go in and to leverage.
I mean, if you're going to go to the trouble of gathering the signatures, would it make sense just to eliminate the conditional use altogether?
Well, that's why I mentioned it, is they may be more apt to sign the termination, so they're not part of a CU anymore, then they also come in here and just get site plan approvals, than to just let him off the hook.
Could we get where's the devil in the details on the worst case scenario if they're just simply held to B6? Because I don't see why there would be one, but I'd be interested to know.
If everybody was terminated, so I think we have to make sure all of the uses are permitted by right.
Yeah.
That's important. And then we need they would have to take part in the stormwater facility, so we should probably review that document and make sure it's not somehow tied to the CU. And then the original CU had a lot of provisions in it related to the infrastructure, but I believe that's all in place, so I don't think it really applies anymore. It's done. So I think the regional stormwater facility, making sure that still is upheld, and making sure they all have permitted uses are really the only negative implications. Even the signage was supposed to be cohesive. I mean, those things aren't there, so.
Yeah, I think terminating it is, there's, no matter what,
get
there's a
signatures.
process, you've got to get the signatures. I think, proposing the termination of it, you're more likely to get signatures quicker, in this way they can separate and operate it as they can.
And then the next time, if you don't, next time Marcus comes in, you got to go get the signatures again to
Right.
exclude the next piece.
Right.
Yeah, as long as it's not exempting someone from a shared cost of maintaining if there's something with the stormwater, I don't know what
Well, there's
agreements in
already a
place.
cross-access easement, utility easements, and then the stormwater facility, we will have to find that document. But it should list out all the property owners and say that they're equally responsible for the facility. Now,
Somebody is a manager of
what
it.
Mike Court did mention about the stormwater management on this site, when that facility was put in, it was put in under old provisions, and now.
I was gonna bring that up.
The city's provisions have changed significantly, so they would be required to meet today's standards. So although they can use the facility, they probably have to incorporate more stormwater on this site, which you don't have a lot of room for. So you'll have to figure that out.
We didn't have a quality provision back then, it was mostly quantity. And that was right around the time we started doing stormwater maintenance agreements too. I think we've covered this one, but Mike will have to look at it.
Yeah,
I
well-
wouldn't guarantee it.
So we have tomorrow morning, we can, if you're supportive of this, we can start figuring that out. We have a meeting in the morning.
And I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer, I just want to be realistic here, but some of these are corporations, right? It's not like we're calling up Joe Miller who owns the building. Getting responses from those folks can be time consuming,
You
just.
find the right person at Children's Hospital to sign off on something like this.
And then,
Just knock on the door.
Then they have their lawyers look at it and these types of things, so just.
So thankfully, we're not in a terrible hurry. Amy kind of laid out that this is going to be a long process. If when you kind of determine what that process looks like and a rough timeline, if I can get some sort of email just to forward on to the seller that, this thing's going to be under contract for 4, 5, 6 months or whatever it takes, right? To kind of get through some of this stuff, just so they understand that it's not a traditional process. Can we talk about the building?
Yeah, sure. So you may want to look at the,
I'm sorry, my name is Ryan Jansen, and this is my wife, Jennifer Jansen.
Okay, I assumed so.
I do all the work, John gets all the
And you got the
recognition.
address?
I did not.
Can you address, please?
Oh, sorry, S98W33270 Genevieve Drive in Mugwanago.
Floor is yours.
I did email that to you just at the last minute here, Amy. I don't know if you can put your email on the screen or not.
did you send it today?
Like
It's actually,
15 minutes ago.
so I have to like get into my company account here, so it might take me a while.
Why don't you go ahead and
wanna
get
just go ahead
started
and
and we'll-
explain it.
So the building is a salon suite facility. We've kind of recognized that the industry is going from less of a renting a chair or working at a name brand salon to stylists and everybody renting their own individual, they're like 11 by 11, 11 by 12 suite. They do their own marketing via social media. So it's basically just a 31 space, like multi-tenant kind of salon. So inside the facility, we do things a little bit differently than a traditional model. We have a coffee bar for coffee and smoothies. We have a location that we just got permits today for, actually, in Greenfield, so this would be a second location. And that one we actually applied for a liquor license, so stylists can have wedding parties in on Saturday morning, and we can serve mimosas or whatever it is to the wedding parties. I don't know if that is something that how you guys handle liquor licenses here, but we'll cover that at some point. That's about it for the most part. We try to keep it really boutique. It's very upscale, which is, I think there's a Sola salon somewhere over near 16 in Capitol. Which would be a similar business to model to that. So we try to keep it very, very boutique, very black and white. A lot of open space on the inside. This one has a nice big fireplace on the inside, lots of seating and places for stylists and clients to relax when they're waiting to get their hair done or waiting for their client. The floor plans I drew myself, so they're not terribly clear, but
That goes back to the packet, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're clear enough. So we try to keep all the suites on the exterior of the building. There's only 4 on the inside that don't have a window. Otherwise, that's a big deal for us, is that everybody has a window, because a lot of the traditional franchises are in a strip mall, and only the couple, 2 or 3 in the front have a window. So that's important to us. And then, like I said, just a lot of big open space in the middle. They have the bar area there, and then, seating and couches for suites that way, seating and couches for suites that way, and then open space in the middle. That's about it.
I mean, for feedback, I like it a lot.
Yeah,
if we can work this out. And I think there's a solution out there. It's just going to take a little time.
Sure.
Yeah, to hang in there, because I think you got a good location for it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's happens to be a hotel real close there, and there's a brew pub that has weddings, and there's actually the hotel actually just updated to have a little ceremony area too. So I mean, it's cool. It's a cool location for all that stuff. If you're ready to be full right when you open. So.
Right. And I think Anton's, I believe Anton's just closed. So I mean, there's some displaced stylists out there that.
I was going to ask about Anton's, but
they're closing, you said?
I thought they.
It's being sold to different owners.
Oh, being sold, maybe not closing.
Yeah.
So be clear, if we don't follow this path, that property has very limited value, because if we follow the code as it exists today,
right,
you'd have a very, very small building envelope on that property.
Popcorn stand.
Yeah.
Really?
What did you say? Non-existent?
A popcorn stand.
I mean, it's important that we get. So as a part of that, we need to make sure that what's there works as far as the infrastructure for the impervious surfaces and all that other stuff too. But provided that it does, and then I don't see why we wouldn't.
I will
try to make it happen.
I will say, if even without the plan development, the requirements, it is a tight site, so they are going to have to fit a lot in there. So you'll have, they'll want to see landscaping, lighting. Same thing with maybe one thing to let him know now, because he's got just enough, got a little extra parking. But going back to the whole landscape island thing, do you want to see the landscape islands or allow the perimeter parking landscaping?
I don't care for that one.
We have a lot of asphalt up there now, so the more green and landscaping you can buy, the more of an enhancement it's gonna be to your property. And we'd like to see that as well.
So there's 31 suites. There's a couple that are doubles or could be used as doubles. So, we haven't opened a facility yet, but I can't imagine, we're not assuming that every suite is going to be full with a stylist and a tenant at the same time. So I think we had 47 in one of them.
Yeah, so what we do, I have to think about this, but you have to have X amount of parking spaces per square footage. And I think for your use, it was one space per 250 square feet. But I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the city allows you to bank parking. Like if you genuinely feel like you do not need those parking spaces, you can, as long as you provide enough green space and they can be constructed, they have the opportunity to approve banking those for a future date.
So you can make them
Is that
green,
correct?
Make them
You're
green
like-
right now and then
Yeah.
make them, turn them to asphalt.
Right.
Basically, yeah, it's a dotted line.
Sure.
So you wouldn't wanna plant a tree there, right?
Yeah. So we actually ask you to show them to make sure it fits and everything, but then we can reserve it for a later date. But we can go through all of that if you continue to pursue the project.
Based on your feedback, I think we will. So I guess I'll just let you guys kind of sort it out over the next, tomorrow in your meeting, over the next weeks or whatever it is, and kind of lay out that timeline, and then that'll help guide me as to how hard I'm going to push for site plans and everything else.
Okay.
It's our first time through this ourselves, so
Oh,
we've
as
given you
as
our
this-
best
as this
estimate.
group?
Well, the city doing this process to vacate a CU and reach out to, so it's not something we've done before. So we're gonna be, I'm just saying, we're gonna give you the best estimate we can, but it's not like we have a lot of practical practice.
Okay.
Well, and, I just did this in another community. The applicant did it. And I think he hired a representative to go and get those signatures. And I would say it was probably the same amount of properties, some absentee owners, and it took them about 4 months to do, just to give you an idea.
Sure.
It's the out-of-town people that are just really hard to reach.
Right.
The larger the company, the further away they are, they're harder to find.
Is there any real sellable benefit that would to eliminating it for these folks that that's kind of enticing, that might make them move a little faster, or is it?
Well, anytime they want to make a change to their property, it's a lot easier and smoother to go through this process without having to go to a public hearing every time they do that, which the conditional use requires.
Sure.
So terminating the conditional use would expedite their review process if they were to come.
Right.
I think we could give you a list of 3 or 4 bullet points that you could use.
Right. So maybe, I guess, when we start looking for signatures or whatnot, just include all that and
Yeah, most
squeeze
businesses,
the pot as much as you can.
most businesses, if you're gonna get rid of restrictions, you sign it right away. Right, to give you the most flexibility, but to their point, when it gets up to corporate America, the lawyers say, okay, what's the catch? And then they spend their time trying to find out how we're trying to get one by them.
Right.
And that just takes time.
So we'll work on it. We'll talk about it tomorrow.
Okay.
How we can help them.
Nice to meet you folks. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you.
luck. Good luck.
Okay, moving right along, 10E DELC 0742986 W73 East Wisconsin Avenue, owner of the Boathouse of Lake Country LLC, DELC 0742014 West 127 East Wisconsin Avenue, owner Boathouse of Lake Country Real Estate LLC, applicant Andy Angara, Rick Gartner, okay, MSI General, and Scott Boise Bauer, sign. Applicant seeks approval of site plan and appearance review for modification to the building and light poles. Come on up. Amy, want to give us an overview of where we are?
Sure. So let's go. Trying to find the site plan. You guys all know where this is?
Yep.
Okay. So in October of 2021, the council, with your recommendation, did approve an amended conditional use that allowed the boat repair, boat sales, service, and storage business expand their operation to the west, which, you know, was a car dealership. So they have acquired that property. And the conditional use was subject to several conditions. A few of them I'm pointing out that need to be addressed before they're supposed to be operating. That no modification to signage is permitted without first obtaining approval for permanent signage. It's my understanding that they'll be coming back with monument and building signage, or just or building face signage. They also attempted to come to this meeting with some directional signage, but we need an accurate site plan and payment, so that's going to also have to be delayed, just so you know. We won't be discussing signage tonight. Another condition that they have to meet is that directional signage be installed that directs the flow of traffic and prohibits parking within the public road right-of-way. Such signage has to be reviewed and approved by the Plan Commission prior to commencing an expanded operation. And then the one that they are going to deal with tonight is any modification of the site or buildings not specifically mentioned in the application materials shall be submitted to the Plan Commission for review and approval as part of a site plan and appearance review. If the modifications are minor in nature, as determined by the Plan Commission, a conditional use amendment is not required. If they're considered significant, the CU would be required with all procedures being met. So they are proposing to remodel the interior of the building. They're making very minor adjustments. Here you can, this is probably the best plan. So they have a large shop in the back. Nothing's changing with that. And there's an existing bathroom, a small bathroom, and 2 additional rooms that will be removed to enlarge the showroom a little bit. They're including adding a door entrance to the parts room, and they're modifying an opening to an existing office, and then also putting a little window that looks into the shop area. They are going to be putting in an overhead door. You can see it would be on the east side of the building, to allow access in and out of that large storage area or workshop. I believe and then they are painting the building. I guess that's probably the important part you really care about. So here's the building. This color, I think, it probably looks a little off. It's not white, it's gray, right? Like a light gray.
I did bring the colors in.
Okay. With blue accents, which are already on your boat building today, correct? And then they are painting the light poles blue, so that's another thing to take a look at. So the recommendation for tonight's meeting after you make discussion is to approve the overhead door and facade changes to the building.
Is that the blue of the light poles that we're passing?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. It's got it written on here in the back. I like the colors.
The overhead door you're looking to put in, you have two currently in that back area. You have 2.
Correct.
So this is just adding a third.
Yep.
All right, just want to make sure. Not that you were eliminating one of them or anything like that. Yeah, I personally don't see any kind of an issue with adding that additional overhead door.
Anything else?
Yeah.
No?
I think the facade changes in the color is a
Yeah, I
minor
think
change.
It's a big
Right,
improvement.
yeah.
Yeah, it's an
Nice
it's an
colors.
upgrade.
Yeah, it's
and-
an upgrade.
I forget, is all the concrete or the parking or what's asphalt there, was that all, I forget, is it all torn up or is it in pretty good shape?
As of about 5 o'clock today, yes.
Oh, you did? Okay. So that was, that was part of the plan to get,
Yes,
redo
still
that whole
is.
thing? Okay,
Yep.
good.
Okay, wow.
So while they're still considering that, Amy went through a list of some other things that we're waiting on, right? And so we're trying to work with you because you are a business operating today. It's not like you're trying to open up a new business. Normally, if you were a new business, we wouldn't let you be operating until those other things are done. So whatever it takes on your guys' end, we really need you to get either the people you've hired or different people hired so that you can get those things taken care of and brought back to us hopefully next month.
Most definitely.
Could you make
Yeah.
that as try to get that done as best as you possibly can in the
My
format
top priority.
Amy's asking you to provide it?
My top priority for sure.
Okay.
Yep, by May 10th for end of, I think, the 25th, back here.
Okay.
And the administrator is looking at the street signage issue. We will look at that on our own, but we really need a scaled site plan that shows the location.
And the directional markings that you're gonna paint on the blacktop, and we really need to really have a good, practical, detailed traffic flow,
Makes sense.
right? Right, for your benefit, for our benefit, for every customer's benefit. We just wanna make sure it's safe.
I agree.
So you're looking for a motion for the
Yep.
approval of the overhead door and the facade changes, and I will make that motion.
Also the light
And
poles,
the light poles. Yes, and including the light poles.
Yeah,
I'll second.
I'll second. I'll just
Second by
comment.
Bob.
I'll just comment that when you paint light poles, they have to stay painted because when they start losing the paint, like black or white's usually easier because, but they look good. So just keep them painted.
Yep.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Great, thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
guys. It's the busy season.
It is. Yeah, I've got all this spare time right now.
Okay.
Last one.
All right, we are on to number 11, comprehensive plan zoning and ordinance revision. This is a long one. 11A DLC 0798964 310 Genesee Street, owner Ryan Eisenhunt, DLC 0798962 302 Genesee Street, owner William and Judy Policki, DLC 07989460005 226 Genesee Street, owner Bradley and Marcia Stocks, DLC 07989582008 Genesee Street, owner Jacob and Jacqueline Fuchs. Sorry if I'm not getting these names right, folks. DLC 0798957 Genesee Street, owner Jeffrey Rademacher and Nancy Harvey. DLC 0798954 and DLC 0798953 124 Genesee Street, owner Michelle Kelly and DLC 0798892 600 Poplar Path, owner City of Delafield, applicant City of Delafield. Consider adoption of a resolution that would recommend approval and amendment to the 2030 comprehensive plan text specific to the central business land use category and expand the central business land use category with a special use area 1 designation on the land use plan map. The Delafield Cemetery would also be modified from the current medium density residential category to the institutional category. Amy.
Okay, so we've talked about this a lot. This agenda item is specific to the land use amendment only. It's not approving any zoning change or any specific type of business uses. So what it is doing is it's projecting out 20 years. That's what a comprehensive plan does. And it is extending the central business area to include this strip of land that's in pink minus the southernmost would be institutional. And I did not change, I don't believe I changed any language from the last month's meeting that was proposed related to the central business area and special use area 1. There was a comment regarding changing central business versus central business district. The zoning will be central business district. Nothing is changing regarding zoning. If that'll be on another agenda item, that would be CBD 4. So we've got CBD 1, 2, and 3, and that would be 4. What we are doing is the land use plan, instead of having CBD, because you don't want your land use categories in a land use plan to appear like zoning districts, and it's matching in kind with the district. So it's actually differentiating a land use category from a zoning, which those two are always confusing to people, but they have different purposes. And so that's why all of downtown, anything that's central business district on the map now will become central business minus the district. The zoning will still be district because all zoning zones are districts. That's all I got for the land use plan. We've talked about it a lot, unless you have questions.
So I have a question. What would be the implications of changing the land use plan and then having individual parcels be changed by zoning? Like, for instance, saying that this was central business district doesn't compel anyone to change how they're using the land.
No.
But someone who wanted to use the land for something that it wasn't zoned for would have to change the zoning.
That's correct. So
if,
right now it's zoned they're all zoned, what, R3, I believe?
Yeah.
They would, the way we decided it last time is they would remain R3. Each individual property owner has to come in and request a rezone so that we have an opportunity to look at every single situation and determine whether or not that zoning district is appropriate for that particular piece of property.
because I mean, what really rings out to me is the fact that when you buy a piece of property, it's zoned a certain way, you're expecting to use it that way. I mean, that's what Mr. Feitz was, did I have his name right? Was referring to, and I totally get that. Yet, just like there's properties that are zoned A1, the land use plan might show that they're able to be converted into residential, which is a reasonable evolution of the property over time, right? And so would this be following that same kind of a mold if we were to change the land use and not change zoning, but for an applicant asking for the zoning change at a particular point in time in the future?
Yep. So, I mean, the land use plan really is your long-term vision for that particular area. It doesn't mean it has to be that today or next year. You know, it's whenever that vision seems appropriate for that property. We'll talk about the zoning next. I would like to talk to the city attorney a little bit more about the zoning district, because what's interesting about that is we're not going to change the zoning district, but we've determined a permitted use in that zoning district is single or two family, just like R3. So it's that if you do convert to business, you have to go through that plan development CU. So it is set up to almost act the same as it's being used today. But we can have that conversation.
Yeah, so that would be a right time to have the conversation about the zoning, because then you're in it. That would be a step where you're enabling a use that wouldn't be necessarily an expectation of someone who bought the property for the zoning that it's in. You know what I mean? So if the land use plan were to change to enable a certain evolution over the course of time, like changing the zoning would actually say, well, you can do it tomorrow. A land use change would mean that this is something that is part of a.
So the way we talked about is we're not changing the zoning. I'm just letting you know that the zoning district we drafted actually has single family and two families permitted by right. Now, with that said, you know, in the future they could rezone it to CBD4, and they could still have a single family home and then a small business piece to it too. So I guess it's limiting the residential to one or two family, not 5 family. So that's where I guess it does benefit. It is beneficial. Anyway.
This is a
Changing the
land
land use is always going to be a second step.
Yes,
Before
always.
somebody does something different. Always going to be a separate step, always going to require a public notice, always going to be forced to go through that process.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the net of this, just the zoning trumps the land use, right? And for most citizens that are concerned and trying to understand all of this, and
Yes.
land use is just a very macro story, but then the zone is where you get into really regulating it or not regulating it.
You have to comply with the zoning district, and the uses in zoning need to be in conformance with the, I shouldn't say that, the zoning, if you were going to change anything, it needs to be in conformance with the land use plan.
Yep.
The way business, what is this called? Central business is laid out is it's promoting the mix of residential and commercial uses.
But that's not going to happen until there's another process.
Right, right.
No, I'm just saying it doesn't say residential's bad
Right,
in here,
no, I
is what I'm trying to say.
understanding, I just was speaking to clarify
Yes.
for, you know.
And is the dialogue about the access, the shared driveway access to the east, is that in our packet because it's a part of this discussion?
It's been part of the
it's historic,
discussion
it's the
from the
history,
beginning.
it's
It's
not
the
a-
history. We're not proposing you're going to see an application come in with the southernmost property. That is going to have a reserved spot for a potential easement in case, maybe it provides access to that adjacent property to the north. And maybe that does keep extending. But all of that has to be reviewed individually. We've determined we're not requiring any kind of a access easement to move forward.
And it's not going to be discussed until some applicant comes in and asks for it.
Right.
So all you're looking for here is a motion to modify.
A motion to adopt this, there is already a public hearing notice that's been published and will take place at Common Council on May 16th. But they need to consider a resolution that is adopted by the Plan Commission. It's your formal recommendation to council to amend the land use plan. That's the formal process per the statutes.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to, correct me if I'm saying it wrong, adopt that resolution
And recommend to council.
and recommend to council.
I'll second.
All right, is there any other discussion?
Amy, just to ask, the citizens can come into the office to get some of this explained to them, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm happy to meet with anyone, and then we will have a public hearing at council too. But yes, I'd rather it get explained before then.
Yeah, I think it's important because it's obviously going to involve the alderperson for the district, and they're going to have questions, and any citizens that aren't involved or here tonight need to understand what steps would be necessary for their neighbor to have people visiting a business after, like changing zoning and disrupting what they thought their
And
long-range plans for the property was going to be.
Yeah, I asked the question because I was a little taken back today. I thought we were on a path of a really good collaborative effort with people in the neighborhood and what might be proposed. So I was a little surprised, and I'm just wondering if there's a little misinformation of how life
No.
might play out here in the next 10 years.
I think the Jeremy who spoke wasn't able to make the last meeting. He was so we have been inviting.
Amy went and met with all the, where they were invited, and I forget, where was the meeting held?
Here, so I had a meeting with Penny and all the
One-on-one with all the
homeowners were
property
invited.
owners that were able to attend.
Got it.
And so we drafted the language to be as sensitive to the comments and concerns of them. And so the way we have it built, if somebody were to propose to do anything other than the way it is today, they have to come in and they have to rezone it to CBD4. And then on top of that, in order to use it for commercial uses, they need a plan development conditional use. It's like a two, it can be done at the same meeting, but it's a two amendment process.
Right.
I'll say that as a part of the process, I think it's a good plan. That's what we're here to do. As far as, is it good in the best interests and the harmony of all of our neighbors? That's kind of what the council has to deal with. So let's see how that plays out, right? I mean, that's
Alrighty.
Okay.
Seeing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we'll move on to 11B. Initial zoning code text amendment for the creation of a new central business zoning district, CBD4, and schedule a public hearing for the same.
Okay, so this is the zoning district that would, kind of couple with the land use plan. Again, individual owners have to have a plan, an idea, their commercial proposal before they could come in to rezone it. But, so I changed a few things. This is mostly the same text that you saw last month. But at last month's meeting, we did have a provision that allowed some incidental retail. I did change that language to say we're going to prohibit retail unless it's associated with otherwise service or office use. So I put conditional uses are limited to low-intensity professional office and service uses such as, and these are just examples, such as insurance and accounting offices, beauty salons, and photography studios. Retail establishments will only be allowed if accessory to another office or service use, such as the sale of beauty products related to a salon or picture frames related to a photography studio. So I don't know if that's too much. I'm just trying to explain what we're looking for there. Any comments on that specifically?
I think it gives a pretty good example of what would be allowed, and that depending upon whoever came in with the particular ask, it would be pretty clear of what, I think it's pretty clear what we're thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to see the example
Yes.
business attached with the label.
Yeah, not a lot of gray there. I mean, obviously somebody's going to be interpreted, but what we're considering as the example, I think it's very clear.
It makes the point.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that it's clear that it's an example, and that's why you have it, the
Yeah.
such as, that's important.
Yeah.
I could add, but not limited to. Maybe I don't know, is that clear, such as clear that it's?
I think that's pretty clear.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
And then I believe there was a concern about, so I have a few required conditions. All business except for off-street parking or loading shall be conducted within a completely enclosed building unless specifically exempted by the Plan Commission or approved as a special event. And then the type of business and number of employees is limited to available access and parking to the site. These provisions will be determined at time of conditional use issuance. Customer vehicular traffic shall not enter the property from just Genesee Street. So that was a comment, a concern that was brought up tonight. So the idea there was employees could drive in from Genesee Street, but we were trying to limit traffic use. Maybe that doesn't need to be in there, and we look at it when an application comes in.
You want to come up and speak to that, please? Just, I want to make sure we've got your concern correct.
Well, I explained to you, Marcia Stocks, Genesee Street. Anyway, at the time that Genesee Street was reconstructed,
If you could just talk into the mic, please.
the road in front of my home and all of these homes was designed by Jim Romanowski, the project designer, to be no parking. The city has not enforced that. If you try to park on my side of the street, anyone traffic crossing will have to go on the other lane, partly because it isn't wide enough. It wasn't meant to have parking. So if you're restricting, and I'm not advocating anybody changing the zoning to commercial, but if you're going to restrict that parking in that way, it's an unviable situation. Where's this business going to
So you're gonna have to
obtain
help me.
parking?
I'm kind of slow. I want to understand, and I'm not understanding. Because you live there, you know it better than I do. So, so the road as it exists today on your side of the street, Genesee Street, there is or is not.
It was
parking?
designed at the time of reconstruction to have no parking up until the area where the street widens in downtown Delafield.
That's correct.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
Yeah, I came to your meeting.
Right.
I know.
I've been around too long, but yes.
We've been through this.
Are there no parking signs up
There's
along there?
nothing
Yeah,
there.
that's true.
It
There are
wasn't,
not.
and, it didn't come to the traffic committee. It didn't get
Right.
instituted. It should have a yellow, or whatever happens there. But of course, we've got prime parking there, and how it
So
goes.
that's a historical concern. Is that what I'm understanding?
And in addition to the fact that
Sure.
if you're going to restrict access to any property on Genesee Street, they're not going to have anywhere to park up in that end.
Okay,
Nowhere.
so that-
Unless
that's
you
a
come
big-
down to Pamelia Street here and try and park in the city lot. And if I'm running a business in the middle of winter for somebody who wants their hair done, they're not going to want to run up the street to do it.
Okay.
And like I said, I'm not advocating any of it, but you're forcing this issue with the alley in the back, probably unnecessarily, because every day you've got oodles of traffic coming off of Cushing School. And I don't think that's usually an issue where there are auto accidents there. The intersection with I-94 is a problem. But the Beehive, the financial place, the bank, everybody on this side of Genesee Street, south, or both sides of Genesee Street, south of City Hall, all have access to the street.
Okay.
In addition to the multifamily housing.
Okay. So it wasn't designed, I'm just regurgitating it to make sure I'm understanding. It wasn't designed for on-street parking on that side. However, there is on-street parking taking place there today.
On occasion.
On occasion. And it's allowed because there are no
The
signs.
width isn't there, though. Marcia's right. Cars have to go in the opposing lane to get around those.
That's right, Jim.
So when that was designed, the thought was, well, nobody would park there. They know there's not enough room.
You say people do park.
But they do occasionally.
Oh, yeah.
So that's an issue for your committee.
It could be, yes. Well, the traffic committee.
Okay. Okay. So now what Amy has read, you're saying that this would make it worse?
Well, it would make it, what kind of business is going to be able to operate without having any kind of access?
Are we specifically calling that out in what you wrote there, that we're encouraging on-street parking?
No, you're saying you can't access the business from the road.
From the
We don't
road.
want people
From Genesee
pulling in
Street.
and pulling out onto the road.
That's
kind of, isn't that
Customers.
kind of the point? Is that we're not, it's not being chosen for a commercial purpose that would have that kind of intensity of use, where that would be demand, and so it would discourage.
But if you have no access to the property, if there's no parking on the street.
It would be a very niche business, right? And where someone would be satisfied
and
with
that's
blocking
fine
and
with
blocking.
me. Like I said, I care. As far as I can see, basically the only one who would be able to comply with that part of the zoning would be the Poplar Path lot that is, looking for commercial zoning. None of the rest of us are.
No, the other thing is it would allow for businesses that, going back to like the accounting, maybe they don't
I think
have
the accounting's a
customers.
great
And they're
example.
they just have an office space or a
Yeah.
financial
Or one or two cars come.
company, financial management company, or whatever. Not everyone has customer traffic. And that's the kind of operation it's very similar to what the focus group originally recommended, minus pretty much the dental office, that it's like a home occupation, but you don't have to have the residential piece to it. So anybody who owns a home in Delafield can propose a home occupation. It can only take up so much percentage of the home. In this case, you can use the whole building for that business, but it may just be your internal office. So it was written that way to be highly restrictive, so we don't have customers coming in and out. But she's right. I mean, that means if anyone has a business with
Which, like I
customers,
said,
they're gonna have
it's
to
fine
walk.
with me, but if you're gonna go through the exercise of, changing the land use plan, changing the zoning, it's basically benefiting a single property. That's it.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Well, it's good to hear.
We appreciate you sharing it with us.
Okay, so any other questions on that, or do you want me, this is an opportunity to tweak this even more before we have the public hearing. Do the required conditions, do you think that's necessary?
Well, if somebody wants to come in and buy all the houses in there, they're gonna wanna have access on Genesee somewhere.
They may ask for, this wouldn't allow customer traffic, so.
But if they built like a parking lot in front, if they wanna knock down all the houses, right? I'm
Yes.
just thinking way down the road.
Right, that's why, so if you want that to
That's
be
a big way down the road
Way down the
because
road, yeah.
each and every property owner would have to agree to that. So that's a
Or
long,
maybe it's 2 or 3 in one section, right? Then it's enough to build something a little bigger.
But then that's where we would look for this alley, which some of the designs had an access out to Genesee Street, correct? It went north and then turned 90 and came out. The alley, the back alley. I remember a design that had, it came along the dentist
Oh,
office.
one point on Genesee
It
Street,
went
you
north
mean?
and one
Yeah.
access point would come out.
By Town Bank.
So with what Bob is saying, if
Yeah.
someone bought all that land
Right.
up,
You'd
all those
start-
properties up, that would probably invoke something like that.
So, I mean, you could remove that and it could be part of the individual reviews if you feel that is more appropriate. I mean, the conditional use section is built to say, the Plan Commission has the authority to use their discretion when determining when specific uses are allowed based on compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood, which may be predominantly residential. In 20 years from now, it may not be predominantly residential. It may not matter anymore. And in order to meet the intent of the zoning district. And then there's an intent section about it being low intensity. Oh, I gotta take out retail on that. So it's up to you whether or not you wanna,
So are we talking about creating this zoning district, but not necessarily specific to these properties?
no, we're talking about putting this in the zoning code.
As
the
a potential
ordinance, As a
zoning-
potential district to choose from.
to use anywhere in this.
It's not being proposed
Because
for
that
any
makes
site.
sense. But, so we don't, but you're, let's see.
We need to move forward with a district because the dental office wants to make an application.
But using terminology saying that you can't enter from Genesee Street is saying it's for these properties.
Yes.
Okay,
Well, it's for yes.
okay. But so if it were to be set up this way because, okay, if it was to be,
You're
I think
thinking of a
we should
generic way?
we should get that out of there.
Yeah.
I think we should,
Genesee
customer
Street.
vehicular traffic shall enter the property from Genesee Street. That
You
should.
could just say from the fronting street or the abutting street or not.
Don't think it should be in there because if
true,
it's
you
if
could
it's a
take it
business
out,
use
yeah.
that, right, I mean,
Yeah.
Well, and it says leading into that, the type of business and number of employees is limited to available access and parking to the
Right,
site. These
so that would
provisions
be-
will be determined at
if
time
you
of
can't-
CU issuance. I mean, it's probably,
then get rid of the last part because you're saying, because otherwise this is specific to those properties.
Yeah.
Couldn't we, I'd like to see it leveraged, there's other Milwaukee Street, Main Street,
CBD
other places that might be the perfect place to do this over time. And then this would also enable us to simply address, let's say, for instance, a single property wanted to be rezoned. It would enable us to do it. And maybe other people weren't interested in being rezoned, we wouldn't have to make them. So I'm struggling with that, telling someone, hey, your property's been rezoned. Well, I don't want it to be. Well, it is. I get if there's an outlier, but I'd like to see a group hug on the whole thing, and if there's one person on an end of a line of properties that has a perfectly good application that would fit an updated land use plan and a new zoning district, I think we should go ahead with that.
Agreed.
I'm beating around the bush.
So you're saying just strike that last?
I said strike that last
Yeah, I agree.
line,
I
have
agree.
a zoning district we could apply anywhere, and if one property wants to be rezoned, let's rezone them
Sure.
and leave everyone else alone. If they don't want it.
Yeah, I mean, with the land use plan issue, it's awkward to have an entire area that's central business, skip an area, and then stick it in again.
Well,
It's,
we're
but,
dealing with a beauty salon applicant who dealt with far more odd circumstances leading up to their situation than this.
okay. So.
Again, I'm talking in riddles, but I'm just saying. I think we're onto something here, and so I'll make a motion to approve.
Hold on, can I just?
Go ahead.
So signs, we talked about not exceeding 12 square feet. I put that in there. I don't think we had any issues with lot area requirements. One thing, so we established, you established a front yard setback of 30 feet on Genesee Street. Just know that Genesee Street actually goes into these private lots quite a bit. You can see the street and then the sidewalk, and the 30 feet would be measured from that point. There's a right-of-way map. So it's not from this yellow line, it's inward.
So it's not from the curb
Quite a bit.
to the edge of the sidewalk.
You're suggesting 30 feet's too much?
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying it's certainly impactful. Now, as you go further south, a lot of that is in the right-of-way. I'm not sure how much goes into the lots.
Or we have to think generically too for other areas that this might apply,
Now, I think 30 feet.
not just Genesee Street.
I gotta go back. I think 30 feet was matched. If you give me a minute. B1, which we thought, was pretty close to this type of scenario, business neighborhood. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. So let's see, front yard setback, you got a lot of 50 feeters.
That's 10 steps.
Scott, any creative
And that's not-
solutions on this one from your perspective?
I think it's so complex. I think it's not realistic. Don't ask me.
B1.
Well, we get an honest opinion.
So all of these, so just so you know, all the B1 through B6, they all have a 30-foot road setback. And then,
CBD 1, I think, is no setback, and CBD 2,
yep, CBD 1 is none, and then CBD 2 is 10, and CBD 3 is 30. So,
The only concern is what good is it if we restrict it so far that it makes it useless?
Yeah, the whole idea was to try to get an alley back there.
And then it doesn't, none of that makes sense to me in a way, saying that if we're gonna restrict all that, say 30 feet back, well, now who's gonna come in and say, oh, I wanna put this property there, or put this business there, if, somewhere down the road. It may never happen, who knows? But if we restrict that a possible development so much, it makes it useless to even go down this path.
so maybe
Then the focus should
CBD,
be, well, let's just look at the dental property and ignore everything going north and just make it a simple solution. And you see what I'm getting at. If we put down 30 feet or put down all these other restrictions, it's useless to go down that path.
we have to put a setback from the road.
I'm just talking then.
you just want to use an existing zoning
I-
district?
I'm just looking at,
No.
I'm gonna simplify the whole thing and say, we have a dental office that wants to go in the corner. We kind of rolled all this into it. We're slowing down the process of the dental office as a result. We're creating setbacks and alleyways, all these different possibilities, and it's going back and forth. What do we have to do to move this along in the right direction? Is it is it plausible to say that we look at 10 feet if we wanted to continue this going north?
That would be the same as CBD2.
But you know what I'm getting at? And that's kind of where I'm seeing this.
Yeah. So the neighbor's concern was that having the dental office go too close to Genesee Street was creating these full building spaces in front of all the houses that are out there that are set back really far. So that's why there's a more established road setback. But I don't think anybody realized that the road is actually pretty far set back. 10 feet is CBD2, which is to the north. And I don't think we're slowing down the dental office. Right now it's zoned and planned for residential, so we have to go through this process no matter what. I guess it's a decision of whether or not it's zoned, and we talked about this, using an existing zoning category or creating a transitional zoning category, which put more control into the city's hand.
Well, looking at other gateways into the community, 10 feet would make sense to me from a setback standpoint.
And the
Because
one
you
that
look at Main Street, Milwaukee Street, and other things.
Go with the 10.
And the one that can live with the 30s soon, if things go well, going to be eliminated from the list. So now we're getting a higher percentage that need the 10, right?
Yeah, then I would say a setback of 10.
If it helps at all, Town Bank, right here, is about 40 feet setback from this right-of-way line, which would get extended. But we want the parking in the back.
We don't want,
in the
our downtown code actually calls for parking
Yes,
in the back
it
anyways.
does.
Yeah, then it makes sense to go with 10.
Even though
All right, so I think we're good with 10.
Yeah.
Okay, next. As we move this along.
I gotta write that down. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up was parking, because parking is built into a separate parking section. And so in order to have a business, you're required to have X amount of parking spaces. Well, in CBD1, there is no required parking. And in CBD2, there's this extra language that I included. Any other districts, CBD3 might be unique as well, but any other district you have to meet, like the previous applicant, 1 space per 250 square feet or whatever. So in CBD2, it says that the Plan Commission may allow a landowner to meet the parking requirement by providing the required parking stalls either on site, on another privately owned site owned by the same property owner, provided such stalls are within 800 feet of the site, or the Plan Commission may allow a landowner to meet the parking requirements by paying a downtown parking fee set and established by the city. Such fees shall be determined by the city based on the cost of providing public parking stalls and may be changed periodically as the cost to the city for providing parking stalls changes.
And if you remember, we used that language in CBD2 when they did the remodeling and an addition of the art studio downtown across from Holy Cow.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Soulfire.
Mm-hmm.
Seems appropriate.
To throw that in, to add that?
Yeah.
Any other comments on parking? Because we'll want to include that in the district specifically then. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I will bring it, if you make a motion to initiate the application, you have to initiate the application and establish the public hearing for May. I'll put together the actual amendment.
Then I would make a motion to initiate the application and to set the public hearing at the May Plan Commission meeting.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we are on to C. DELC 07819890001, DELC 07819890003, DELC 07819890002, and DELC 0784999, owner JAG 3 LLC, DLC 0781990001. I feel like an auctioneer. Owner John and Carol Geeson, DELC 07849977. Owner Michael and Jill Woodford, DELC 0784999001. Owner James Perry, DELC 0781990003. Owner JAG 1605 LLC, DELC 0778999001 and DLC 07799999. Owner Nagawicka View Dairy Incorporated. Applicant City of Delafield, discussion regarding potential amendment to the 2030 comprehensive plan, including amendment to the land use plan map so that the subject properties are all designated in the medium density residential category in accordance with the recommendation of the Economic Development Land Use Focus Group. Currently, the lands on the west side of Highway 83 are designated as agricultural on the land use plan map. Amy.
Okay. Does everybody know where this map image is in the city on Highway 83? Okay. So just as a recap for the audience and plan commissioners, in 2021, an economic development land use focus group that was appointed by the mayor and approved by the Common Council met and came up with several recommendations for potential development in the city. So we are now working through those areas one by one, bringing them through the process. The downtown area that we've been talking about is one of the areas. And the purpose of that project was really to promote responsible growth while hopefully reducing and balancing the budget deficit. Really the most, I don't want to say easiest way, but in order to increase that tax base, you really need to have new development. That's the way the state structure is set up. So not that the city is proposing to just develop anywhere, but this group looked at the city as a whole very carefully and identified certain areas. So this area was one of them. A lot of these holdings are owned in common. The east side of Highway 83 is already, so everything that's highlighted on this map, it's already in the medium density category. There was a development proposed many years ago and it was approved with multifamily toward 83 and then lower density residential on the east side adjacent to the town. So that property on this east side, the Nagawicka View Dairy property, is subject to specific restrictions in a settlement agreement between the City of Delafield, the Village of Heartland, and the Town of Delafield. The easternmost and majority of that acreage shall be developed as single-family residential complementary to the Foxwood Estates in the Town of Delafield through the use of the city's B6 Commercial Holding District. And then the land use, site plan, architectural issues are subject to review by the Village of Heartland and review and approval by the Town of Delafield. And the property shall not be used for retail purposes, meaning the sale of commodities, goods, or services in small quantities to ultimate consumers. So
the red is the single family?
Yes. Well, that's a property ownership line. But that's where the boundary, the low density residential needs to border the town of Delafield. And then it can become higher density as you go east. So it's probably a pretty good division of how it's color coded.
Those lines are rough.
But they're rough, yeah.
They're not meant to be a dead line where you have to be on this side or the other.
Yeah.
They're representative lines, right?
So the focus group had recommended that everything in everything in the yellow and orange color be designated in the medium density category, which would allow 1 unit up to 4 units per acre. Now, again, no zoning is being proposed at this time, and so that can be further controlled by the zoning district that you would end up choosing. Right now, the west side of 83 is agricultural. And the east side is zoned R3 already. R3 requires a minimum 20,000 square foot lot size. If they did a planned development, they could try to make that smaller, although your planned development actually does require a half acre right now. So the east side is already pretty set up. I just wanted to share. It's in medium density residential. There are some restrictions in place. The focus group is recommending that that be developed as a planned unit development. And then on the west side, they're also requesting that that be medium density residential. And then they recommended that as you go west into the blue area, that be low density residential as a transition to these adjacent 2-acre lots. The blue area has already just gone through the land use plan and rezone process, and that's coming in for specific implementation plan for a subdivision.
It's the Spheris development.
Yep.
Is the blue.
So unless you have, I mean, that's all I have to share right now. I guess I would, open it up for your discussion. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I could have asked this months ago. I'm surprised I didn't. I'm a little surprised they did that medium density on the west side as opposed to lower density. Do you remember what the rationale was there?
Yeah, a couple things. It's right on the state highway, so it would be hard to market low-density residential on a highway like that. But also, this area is like the only along 83, this east side of the city that has sewer and water. So the cost associated with that and long-term maintenance is pretty expensive, and it's common for municipalities to have pretty high density in areas that are served by sewer and water. The area directly to the west, we kept 1 acre to act as a transitional zone along Nagawicca. So that was the focus group's primary reasoning.
And I would imagine development in this area will drive a 4-lane. Or would that stay 2-lane? I can't imagine that hill 2-lane with all this additional. It probably drives a whole widening of that, right?
It's my understanding. I don't know what the improvements are, but highway
Totally controlled by the state, and the state would do that irregardless. Has a timeline for that road that would have nothing to do with what was built in this area or frankly anywhere along 83.
As a past DOT employee, I can tell you that needed to go 4 lanes years ago.
Yeah.
And it met thresholds years ago. So yeah, this is really not going to make it happen.
Actually, I noticed.
But should we, I'm getting way off topic, but if we do this and then somebody comes in and says, I want to develop this, would we approve that without that? I know we can't tell the state what to do, but we approve something like that without?
So,
sure.
Couple of things.
Yeah.
DOT would.
We don't control that road.
Yeah, they would.
No, but it would be a mess trying to go up and down.
Well, we'd have to have
that
a traffic study done to validate that. I mean, the state, I don't want to speak, you know better than I do, but I mean, they have processes. They know where they can allow entrances and not allow entrances. That's all been predetermined. And they would tell us what would have to happen.
The state would have say in where the entrances and exits or the roads that would serve this area. Any road coming to a state highway has to get a permit through the state. So we could approve 4 roads along 83 coming into these, and the DOT might say, no, you're going to get 1.
Yeah.
So couple more things when we talk about 4 units per acre. So the city's land use plan is set up where you go from low density residential, which is a minimum 1 acre, to that medium density category, which is 4 units per acre. The zoning that ends up coming in and would have to go through a public hearing process and all the same people would be notified, could be anywhere, could fall in many different density districts. It doesn't have to go all the way to 4 units per acre. It could, I don't know, it could be in a 20,000 square foot category or 15,000 square feet, what have you. But the other thing, DOT is proposing improvements to 83, I think scheduled for like 2025, which will improve the flow of traffic in this area.
Actually, Monday when I was coming home south on 83, there are survey stakes on both sides of 83 right now, starting at 16, going all the way to where the 4 lane starts.
So they may be planning. It's on
Could be
their
planning, or I
docket.
believe I thought there was a resurfacing project coming up.
That's my understanding, there's a
Yeah.
resurfacing project coming
I think
up.
there's a resurfacing job coming up.
The survey.
So if they're resurfacing it, it's probably not gonna be widened anytime soon.
And I'm not referring to 4 lanes, I'm just saying they're making improvements that should help.
As we look at the land use, again, the zoning is different, right? So, because we're
Right.
talking about going from agricultural to residential along here. But so we've got the red area where we're part of there's oversight from neighboring municipalities to protect the character of the homes
Yeah,
in the
lot
town of
size-
Delafield in the village of, well, those aren't homes in the village of Heartland, are they? Maybe? No.
What, to
So
the
it's-
north?
So we've got the what is it, whatever estates over there?
Fox something
Fox
estates.
Run.
Right.
But we should be doing the same thing in the northwest corner for those 2-acre properties, and that just take that and just cut that in a corner or something. I mean, because what we'd be kind of what we'd be promoting is we'd be promoting an apartment building there or something. I mean, like a or condo, like
I
whatever.
think condos, I don't,
Like 8-unit buildings or.
medium density isn't gonna accommodate
But-
an apartment building.
But so whatever we do, we have to be conscientious of the fact that that we need to buffer that corner from the people that live there right now.
So with that, there's a couple different ways of approaching this. One, you change it to medium density residential and you wait for that zoning to come in and you make those decisions at that time.
You mean a proposal to
A
change the
proposal,
zoning?
because
Yeah.
right now the zoning is
Yeah.
A1, it's agricultural, it's
Yeah.
3-acre minimum. The other option, because I think you are gonna have to do this in a couple areas as we go north, it gets more complicated. We intentionally created that downtown special use area 1. I mean, you can keep doing that. So a lot of communities have neighborhood plans where they have a big land use plan and then they break it down into detailed areas. If you wanted to be specific to make it clear that in case the plan commission and council members all change in 5 years, and you want to make it really clear that you want these transitional zones, you could add another special use area 2 and write text into the land use plan about the intent of having low density bordering existing residential.
okay.
So that's, I wanted to,
And the border agreement requires that the lots adjacent to the lots that are in the town be the same.
Yeah, I know.
So
I'm just-
envision that it's a transition.
And we could, I
right?
mean,
Is everyone aware of this border agreement with the town of
If you're not-
Delafield and Village of Heartland?
it's in the, if you go to www.delafieldgrowth.com, it's on that page, the whole agreement is on that page.
But simply put, it requires matching lot
Similar.
size adjacent to their properties. After that lot, then the city's free to do what they want.
yeah.
And then, just so you know, 4 units per acre equals 10,890 square feet per unit. So it's not like a,
I know, that's not.
you know,
that-
you're not gonna get a massive unit, built condominium out here.
Right, okay.
But if you want that special
And
use
if-
area, let me know, because I'll start thinking about how to draft it.
The general question is, what do you think about medium density for the areas that don't border 2-acre plus lots? I believe I'm saying that correct.
That's the right spot for it.
Yeah.
I think it all comes down to the plan of what you actually put inside in the development.
Which you have total control of, you know,
Which, yeah,
the
which-
land, again,
so-
like before, the land use is the 20-year vision, right?
Yep.
Do you see medium-type density going in there to help reduce the per-unit cost and having more, most likely a condo-type scenario as opposed to a 1 or a 2-acre lot? If you leave it 1 or 2-acre lots, it's most likely gonna sit there the way it has.
Yeah, I thought the point that
And
was
not be
brought up
developed.
about being right on the highway, harder to develop. So a condo, as that going down that hill, a nicely done condo would seem to make a lot of sense there, right?
Could be single story, right?
True.
Yeah. Well,
Don't know.
We control that,
Yeah,
but we have
don't
control
know,
over that. I'm fine with the medium.
So the only thing
Yeah.
we need to do is not rezone, the land use,
Yeah,
get this to,
change it to medium.
change it to, yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll make a motion that
wait.
we change the land use to medium density as per what you've laid out here in the plan.
So, what I can do, you don't have to
motion?
schedule a public hearing or anything, but what I can do is, if you're comfortable with medium density residential, I can draft a resolution for consideration at next month's meeting if you want to move forward in that manner.
Yeah,
Do-
I would agree.
Yeah, just do it.
Yes, let's do it.
Is there any need to put in a special use area? Are you comfortable reviewing that at time of zoning permit, or
Be
zoning
the site, this
amendment?
magic will be in the site plan to make sure that people are
Yeah.
taken care
It's
of
awfully hard to
respectfully.
guess at what that's gonna be.
Right.
Yeah. I
Keep
think
it simple, don't
Yeah, I
add another.
agree. Let's
Okay,
keep it simple.
zoning
and
amendment, just
don't-
leave it medium, okay. We can do that?
Okay.
Okay.
We did it.
All right, we will move on to 12, report of city officials. Planning Commission meeting dates and deadlines. Regular meeting is May 25th, 2022. Regular meeting submittal deadline, May 10th, 2022. B, correspondence. C, planner.
All I will say is last month, I think it was, we talked about business plan of operations and expediting that. This agenda was just really full and I didn't feel that we needed to add that as a priority. So it will get added, it's on my list, but
Thank you.
it'll be added when we have a reasonable agenda. May's looking busy.
May, June, July, August, they're all looking busy. We had 3 meetings today that are all gonna be on very soon
High season-
agendas.
High season for building.
Good problem.
And if anybody, just say it again, delafieldgrowth.com to learn more about the land use plan and the focus group. Please check it out. Lots of 21 hours of video on there, lots of documents. Please check it out. Building inspector.
Nothing specific to report, except that I expect a substantial increase in residential and commercial construction activity. Let's see if the economy holds up.
Yeah.
Raising interest.
Yeah. That'll
Sounds
put a kink
good.
in things.
Number 13, seeing no further business, we now are adjourned at 9:31 PM. Only 2.5.
My daughter sells,